Okay, so this slide here is actually showing us the adoption of innovation, right? It is actually taken from Alfred M. Rogers, who did this study back in 1960s. He's an American sociologist. His study was actually about the farmers, how farmers in America adopt new innovation, and his finding is quite interesting as well. So marketers also adopt it, okay, to understand the innovation groups. Okay, the first one is the what we call as the innovators. Okay, the innovators are basically keen on innovation. Okay, they're keen. They are quite keen to the innovation. Okay, so when a company introduces a new innovation, they are quite keen to do it. So they're quite keen to adopt it. In fact, they may help the company absorbing the cost by purchasing the prototype product. Right. With that, they actually help the company absorbing the costs. Okay. So that's the innovation. They are basically a big fan of innovation. Okay. The next group is what we call as the early adopters, which is basically about describing a group of people who adopt the products quite early, and they basically have the charisma to influence people. They may write feedback, they may write comments to these products, right? They may be bloggers, right? After they find an innovation, they try it. Okay, well, this one's quite good. And they may influence the others as well. Okay. Now the next one is important. These guys are the early majority. Okay, the early majority is basically the group who adopts the innovation before the average of the others, before the others adopt it. Okay. And then it falls into the late majority, right? They adopt the innovation after they find, okay, this guy adopted, this guy also adopted. Yeah, why don't I come on board? Okay. And the last one is the laggards. The laggards are basically, in quote unquote, quite stubborn to the existing product, right? So they're quite loyal actually. So they're quite loyal to the current product that they've been using. And yeah, it's hard to change their opinion, okay, to switch to a new product or a new innovation that we launch, okay. They will switch to the new innovation especially when they find, the current product is no longer available in the market. All right, so I think it is the time for me to move on, okay. Now, if you look at that, these two guys control the majority of the volume, 68%. Okay, but if the innovation fails to convince the innovators and early adopters, it's hard for the innovation to move on to the next level, the early majority. All right. Therefore, although the innovators and early adopters only contribute 16%, okay, but they are quite critical because they influence the other guys. They influence the early majority to adopt the innovation, right? Now you can think about products such as Google Glasses, for instance, right? Or any other products that fail to to forward to the next level. Okay, so think about that. Okay. All right. Now that's basically consumer buying behavior. Now let me just discuss briefly about the business buyer behavior, because I don't know whether we talk about your. I believe you emailed me your the social enterprise that you wish to analyze, but let me just take you through briefly the business buyer behavior. Okay. So if we talk about consumer behavior, it's actually about the individual, household, or personal consumption. Okay. Now, business buyer behavior is actually about the organization, right? The consumption of the organization. Okay. So if the product or service is purchased for an organization, right? Like for a company, photocopy paper, for instance, that is purchased for a company, for the company that operates day-to-day operation, right? Or if the product is purchased for the company to make another product, such as sugar, for instance, purchased by a biscuit company, right? That means we talk about business buyer behavior, right? So they fall under business buyer behavior domain. Okay. Right. So again, it is about the principally directed at personal use. If it is about consumer buyer behavior, all right, consumer behavior, right. If, beyond those things, we talk about business market, okay, or B2B. Okay. Now the customers of B2B includes these three major groups: commercial enterprises, governments, and institutions. Okay. The commercial enterprises, if we focus on commercial enterprises, there are three types as well. Users, right? So they use, they buy the product for to produce their own products or services, right? And they sell these their own product or services to their business customers. Okay. And the next one is OEMs, or original equipment manufacturers. So they actually put in a number of ingredients into their product, and they sell everything in here as one package. If you look at a laptop, for instance, okay, they may use Intel Pentium, they may use a certain speaker such as Bose speaker or whatever. I wish my computer has that, or any other. Okay, and they sell it as a package for the customers, right? So that's what we call as the OEMs, or original equipment manufacturers, right? So BMW may use certain branded audio system, and they also use it to boost their own branding. Okay. So that's actually about the ingredient branding that we talk about in terms of OEM. Okay. The next one is resellers. So these guys actually purchase a product or service and sell them to B2B customers. Okay, but they do not change the physical product, but they may add value to it by offering service like installation service or maintenance or training. Okay, or advice and so on and so forth for their customers. Okay. All right. Now, government is a bit complex, but they are big buyer actually. In Australia, look, if you look at the not only in Australia, I believe in the other countries, if you look at their purchase, they spend hundreds of $billions. They may spend that much to purchase anything, right? Including food for the needies, uniform for the serviceman, servicewoman, okay, battleship, weapons, and so on and so forth, right? So they are big customers actually, okay. Institutions, another group that includes universities, hospitals, right? So they may have different characteristics as well to commercial enterprises. Okay? Now, the other thing I'd like to highlight is the characteristics of business market, right? If we compare to consumer market, they are different in terms of market structure and demand. The characteristic of business market actually includes, in terms of number, they are fewer. Okay. But they are larger. They are large buyers. Okay, so if you compare to biscuit customers, right? That means household or families. Okay, we may talk about 1 million customer or more than that. Okay, but if we talk about the customer of carton box, for instance, right? We may only talk about 100, 200, 1,000 people, 1,000 organizations, for instance. Okay. However, their consumption is quite large. When they place the order, they may place, when the customers place the order, they may place, a few $1,000s in one order, okay? Compared to a biscuit customer, okay? We do not buy, let's say, biscuit, $5,000, right? Unless we have, a party. I don't think even birthday party, for birthday party, we buy that much, okay? So that's the difference between business market and consumer market, right? So business market, in terms of number of customers, they are fewer, but the purchase value is much larger than consumer market, okay? There are three types of demand as well in terms of business market. We have what we call as derived demand, inelastic demand, and fluctuating demand. Now, derived demand is actually demand in business market that is driven by consumer purchase. Okay, so if we imagine we have a B2B supplier, okay, this is our supplier, okay, and then we have the B2B customers, okay, B2B customers, right, which is another organization, and then we have the final consumers or end consumers, okay. Now, derived demand means if the final consumer if the consumption at final consumer increases, okay, they will place more order for our business customers, okay, and as a result, the business customers will place more order or higher order from the supplier, okay. So let's say if you talk about can, oops, sorry. If you talk about the can category, okay, in the context of energy drink, for instance, in Australia over the last few years, energy drink business is increasing in terms of consumption. Okay, so the consumption here is increasing, right? The consumption here is increasing. That means demand for companies who supply energy drinks, such as the Coca-Cola Group or Frucor Beverage, and so on and so forth, is increasing. So they will place more order for the can. Okay, so can order will be increasing as well, driven by these guys, driven by the consumers, right? So that's what we mean by derived demand. Okay, demand in this category is also characterized by inelastic. Okay, now inelastic in here means they are not affected by price change. Okay, so what it means is actually if you work as the in B2B business, right? You slash your price, all right? It's hard for you to expect that your customers will increase their order for you, all right? Unless they pass on the discounts to the final consumer, and the chance for them to pass on the discount to the final consumers is quite little. Okay, why is that? Well, let's have a look at the this energy drink business further, right? Our B2B customers, okay, with the Coke, Frucor, and so on and so forth, right, will buy a number of things, not only can from us. They also buy sugar, they also buy carton box, they also buy labor power or workforce, right, and so on and so forth, right? Let's say we slash the price of our can price. Okay, we slash the can price, right? We expect them to buy more from us, right? Well, it may not happen, but definitely they will say thank you. Okay, why is that? Because probably they may have a cost increase on the other sectors, like the sugar price, the carton box price, or the labor costs, right? So they will say, thank you later for you, right? Thanks a lot. That helps me offsetting, compensating, the other price, the other cost increase. Okay, so the chance for them to pass on the discount back to the final consumer is not that high, actually. Okay? And demand is also fluctuating because demand from the customers, right, in this simple model is actually driven by their campaign as well. Okay, at some point of time, they may run campaign to drive purchase from the final consumers. Okay, by that time, they anticipate to purchase more from you. Right, so that is the reason why it is fluctuated. Okay, so hopefully that explains the market structure and demand. Okay, the next one is nature of buying units. In the case of consumer market, well, the decision only involves, right, fewer people compared to business market. It includes more participants. Okay, in fact, in a huge project, they in fact include a lot more people, probably even the head office, if we talk about global company. Okay, so the nature of buying unit, actually they include more participants, right? As a result, the decision-making process is more complex. Okay, and they have more thorough process to make decision, right? So there are some characteristics of business market, especially if we compare to consumer market. Right? Similar in terms of model of consumer behavior, right? We have the SR model. We also have the same thing, right? But in here, we in fact include the competitors in terms of environment, okay? And again, here, one of the things I'd like to highlight in here is the in terms of the buyer decision process, we have what we call as the buying center that includes several roles in the buying decision center. And it may be different from one purchase to the other purchase. Okay, for instance, if you buy normal office products such as stationery, we may only include 1 or 2 people in the organization, and that person may just log into to the website of any supplier, and they place the order, right? But if we talk about buying machinery, for the same organization, they may include different team. Okay, they may include the marketing team, they may include the R&D team, they may include the manufacturing team, and they may include the engineering team, right, and the quality team. All right, so it is a different role. Okay, the buyer response again basically something that we can observe as well. Okay, the product service choice, supplier choice, order quantities, and so on and so forth. Now, in terms of supplier choice, from B2B marketing perspective, it's hard for B2B marketers to lose a customer, because when they lose a customer, it's hard to win them back. Okay, so they will do their best to be the supplier of choice of their strategic accounts. Okay. Right, so this is types of buying situation. We have the straight rebuy, which is basically routine purchase, no modifications. They have been buying this product from their B2B supplier for long. They've got the experience, so they just click the button, that's it, like photocopy paper, for instance. Okay. Modified rebuy actually includes the purchase that have some modification. What are the things that they modify? That includes the product, the price, terms of purchase, and maybe the supplier. Okay, so here we talk about in supplier and out supplier actually. Okay, in supplier are basically the supplier who's been supplying them. Right, these guys have been supplying them. The out suppliers are basically not supplying them at the moment, but they are invited to the tender. Okay, now, if we are an out supplier, it is an opportunity for us. It is an opportunity for us, okay, to win the account. Okay, if we are an in supplier, well, we may be nervous, right? We may want to approach this customer, especially if this customer is quite critical for us. We may want to approach this customer, comprehensively, right? We may offer different things that is more superior from our potential competitors. Okay. And the next one is the new task, which is basically entirely new purchase, such as new product launch or a new project that the customers are basically conducting. Okay? The same model in terms of influences on business buyers. So we have the environmental, organizational, and we have also interpersonal factor and individual. Okay. So we look at individual level as well in terms of understanding the factors affecting buyers and the decision maker, okay, in business market. So that includes the age of the buyers, the income, the education, the job position, the personality of this buyer, right, or procurement team, and also the risk attitude, whether they are risk taker or not, they're ambitious or not. Okay, so they're basically a range of factors influencing business buyers. Similar model in terms of buyer business buying process, okay, except this one is longer, right? In the previous one, we have 5 stages in the consumer decision making process. Here we have 8 stages, including the performance review. So normally companies do the review of their suppliers. Are they good or not? Okay, and they review that. Okay. E-procurement is quite common now because it is quite simple. It's quite fast for business buyers to make decisions. Okay, so that's basically the consumer and business buyer behavior. Any questions so far, Hans?
No, not really.
Not really. Okay.
Yeah, it's all. I've managed to read most of those sections in the module, so it was. Yeah, sort of a recap as well.
Right, fantastic, fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, now let's just discuss this briefly. All right, I'm not going to prolong our discussion on the sustainable marketing. I'm just briefly highlighting a number of things, right, and then we move on to assessment. Okay, right. Sustainable marketing actually involves two things. The first one is being socially responsible. That is related to ethics. Okay, the second one is being environmentally responsible. Okay. Now, this why socially responsible and environmentally responsible, because we want to ensure that whatever we can enjoy now can be passed on to the next generation, next generation, next generation. Okay, so being sustainable has become more and more important. And we may recall a number of cases, such as the Lehman Brothers, for instance. Several years ago, they filed bankruptcy. Okay, because they did some, people say that they did some accounting tricks to show that they have the capacity to absorb a higher level of risk in their property investments as an investment banker. Okay, now the issue is not about laying off 3,000 jobs globally, but the issue is also about people's trust in our economic system. All right. In our economic system, we have the possibility to buy shares or to become the owners in our capitalism system. Okay. So the question is, can we trust this company or not? All right. If we can't convince the stakeholders, including the investors, to trust the system, then it is melting down. The system is melting down, basically. Okay, so that actually my introduction to the sustainable marketing. Why sustainable marketing has become more and more important in today's business landscape. Okay, and the first thing that I'd like to introduce is the concept ethics, which is basically about moral principles and values that govern the actions, right? So that gives us a standard to say right or wrong or good or bad. Okay, in today's business landscape, marketers have become more and more prominent in terms of being, criticized on their actions. Okay, well. It goes beyond law and regulation. Sometimes it also involves the what I call as the taste, the social taste, whether it is appropriate or not. Because in some cases it may the regulations say, well, that's fine, but from our community perspective, they may say, no, it's not okay. Okay. There are several issues in here. There are three social criticisms. There are three groups of social criticisms. The first one is marketing impact on individual consumers. The second one is marketing impact on society, and the third one is marketing impact on their business. All right, just briefly. High prices, deceptive practices, high pressure selling, showing harmful or unsafe products, planned obsolescence, and also poor service to disadvantaged consumers. They are part of the social criticisms in terms of individual consumers, right? So, for instance, marketers have been accused of driving the price quite high because of the advertising campaign that they run, or the distribution network that they perform that increases the price of that the final consumers will need to spend. Okay, and marketers would normally argue, well, hang on a second, they do add value, because if we don't advertise, consumers don't know that. Okay, our distributors also add value, because without them, our consumers cannot access the product. Okay, deceptive practices, the companies say one thing but deliver the other thing, right? The key word in here is we need to be able to show the evidence that we can deliver that. Okay. High pressure selling, marketers have also been accused of giving pressure to consumers to purchase. Especially telemarketers, telesales, they've been accused of being too aggressive in making sales. Okay, now shoddy, harmful, or unsafe products. Sometimes marketers find it hard to avoid it. Okay, we may say that the company has been doing corporate social responsibility activities, but the nature of their product may be accused of harmful to people's health, right? So you can imagine that the fast food brand, for instance, okay, fast food companies or snack companies. Yep, you've been doing that. You've been supporting these charity organizations. Thank you very much. You've been supporting this sport club, for instance, to promote sport events. Thank you very much. But the nature of your product is actually harmful for people's health, for instance, right? So that's a moral debate as well, actually. Okay, planned obsolescence. Some products, some companies might plan their, to delete certain products, okay, because they need to update it. They need to update the product to adjust to the lifestyle of the customers, right? And the customers, the final consumers may say, hang on a second, that product is still okay. Like, I still find it fun. I still find it okay for me to use, but you have planned to delete that product, okay? Poor service to disadvantaged consumers. Basically, consumers have accused marketers that, well, I've been disadvantaged because you didn't tell me the complete information because of my poor access to the information, for instance, okay? Now, the second one is impact on society as a whole, all right? And the first one is the false wants and too much materialism. Marketers have been accused of creating wants. So they offer products that consumers actually don't need, but they have been tricked or manipulated to purchase this based on their wants, all right? So, for instance, we may find buying a product without, okay, well, actually, why do I buy this product? I may not need it, okay? So that's a thing that the companies have been accused of, okay? And companies defend themselves saying, well, the impact of marketing campaign has been exaggerated because at the end of the day, a lot of products fail in the market. We have launched a number of products, but we also face a lot of failures in the market as well. So it is actually the decision of the customers to purchase it, okay? To view social goods is quite interesting. When our role in the business, whatever we do is actually to grow the business. But when we grow the business, we actually consume more social goods, like roads, for instance, okay? We actually use them, okay? We ship more products. That means we use more, public utilities in here. And at the end of the day, our government will need to allocate funding from the taxpayers' money to fix those things, right? And cultural pollution is another issue. Marketers have been accused of spreading cultural pollution with the sex, for instance, with the sex messages, for instance, with the status, power, materialism messages over advertising campaign, and so on and so forth, for instance, okay? And marketers normally defend themselves saying, well, without the advertising campaign, okay, it's hard to spread the news. But on the other side, with advertising campaign, we actually have helped consumers to access media with cheaper price or for free, okay? Because we fund these media channels to survive, actually. Okay, so that's how people defend it, right? In the debate, in the moral dilemma. Okay. The next one is marketing impact on other businesses, right? Again, our task is to grow the business. When we grow the business, we may acquire the other business, okay, or we may escalate the barriers to entry that has stopped the other companies to come to the other to our industry. Okay. Well, Martha said, we need to let the companies who can provide better products, better services to win the competition. That's how we operate actually in this economic system. Okay, right. So that's a bit of issues in there in terms of marketing impact. Now this one here is New Zealand. Have you heard this before, Hans?
Yes, I remember that one. It's very controversial.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's quite controversial, and as mentioned before, that in terms of ethics, it goes beyond regulations, written regulations. If I can reinforce that, okay. This one here actually, includes the social ties as well. Community around the church, ran protests at that time. That's why that's what I read from the newspaper in here as well. Okay, Well, again, this is not an offense to anybody or any group. I'm just bringing this as an example. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So that's basically our topic for this module, right? And on Thursday we are going to continue with marketing research topic. Okay. Any questions so far?
No, not really. No, it's it's all slowly sinking in.
Right. What about the assessment? Any questions about the assessment?
I probably haven't got far enough into it to I guess to have any specific questions. I guess one of the ones is assessment of the marketing plan. So I'm trying to conceptualize what that should entail.
Right. Okay. What you want to do is you may not be able to access their marketing plan. Okay.
Yeah. So at the moment, all I can sort of see is obviously their internet site, and they've got Facebook and Twitter, and there's a few sort of media releases, etc. So I'm not sure if I can actually figure out what their marketing plan as such is, but can certainly assess it from the outside looking in, as if you would assess a competitor. You don't necessarily know what they're doing outwardly, but you can kind of perhaps take some clues from the information they do have public.
Yep. I like your thought. It is on the right direction. You review their marketing activities to find out whether they're performing well or not, to have a at least an educated guess, if you like, whether they are performing quite well or not, whether how they to explain how they perform, basically based on their activities in their website, their social media, their campaign, right, their services, and so on and so forth. Right, you're on the right direction, because we don't have the access to their marketing plan. Yeah. All right. Do you want to take you through again with the advice, or you're pretty okay with that?
I think I'm okay with that for the moment. I might have some questions on Thursday once I've had a little bit more time to work on it.
All right. Fair enough. All right. Fair enough. And look, module 2 is the my second presentation is the one that you want to look at in terms of helping you with the model or concepts that you can use to address to attack the questions.
Right. Okay. Yep.
All right.
Good.
If that's the case, sorry.
No, that's all good.
All right. If there's the case, then I'll see you in the next session on Thursday.
Okay.
All right. Have a good
all
one.
Right. Thanks, Eddie.
Bye.
Okay. See ya. Bye.